When people say I run an Airbnb business, it's like saying you run a Yellow Pages business. Like Airbnb is a channel to get customers. It's not a business. I mean, you can make it into a business, but the thing is, what happens if Airbnb turns your traffic off and you stop getting bookings? Well, you don't have a business
anymore. You don't have a business anymore.
Do you?
It's your single point of failure. You have to look at it as a business. Where's your traffic coming from, and make sure that you mitigate your risk and downside.
So have you guys cracked that algorithm code with Airbnb, for example? You know, do you guys take that into consideration? Do you guys pivot, make adjustments based on that? And then based on your knowledge of that and the given market, you know, how does that help your conversions?
It's a really good question. So let's just, again, kind of take it from high level and then kind of get into the more specifics of it, because it's interesting timing of when you've asked that, because Airbnb actually recently came up with a major update on their
just
platform.
Last week. Yeah.
So it's got a lot of hosts talking. It's got a lot of people potentially upset
and scared,
not sure what to do. And, you know, a metaphor I like to give with how this is all kind of playing out, a fantastic book for everyone to read, for anyone that's really serious about growing and scaling a business, is the book by Spencer Johnson called Who Moved My Cheese? Okay. So a lot of people, as changes are happening, they're stuck in the past, and, you know, things are starting to shift in our industry. Things are starting to evolve, and they're not willing to adjust their actions and circumstances to fit the times that we're currently in.
Yeah. So just with the analogy of like, who moved my cheese? The mice keeps going to the same spot the cheese has always been in. And then it's dwindling, and it's not there anymore. But they're like, well, where's the cheese? Like, I'm still going to go there. Like, no, it's always been there. So they keep going to that same spot. And then this other mouth is like, well, I think we should try going somewhere different, right? Try looking elsewhere. And that's essentially the high level of that book, is that mouse lives, and, you know, because they tried something different and they shifted, right? And just because something, you know, has always been there doesn't mean it's going to continue to be there.
So with the updates with Airbnb, let's talk about that. So they have completely redesigned the whole interface and experience of someone that's actually coming onto that platform and serving up very unique inventory that you would normally not think to search for when you're looking to book a trip, right? And the whole premise of this is Brian Chesky, you know, they've made this very public, and, you know, press releases they put out to the public, is the way people are traveling, you know, flexibility and remote work. This is the new reality.
People are living on Airbnb. They're working remote. They're traveling with their families. It's not just the business travel anymore. It's the family traveling. It's being flexible. So that's exactly what they're honing in on here with unique experiences. They're not looking at locations. They're looking at places. So you might be looking at maybe, you know, a place in Phoenix, but it could be actually a place way out in the desert that wouldn't be, you know what I mean, in the typical like Scottsdale area. It could be like literally a cool tent in the middle of the desert that you never would have experienced. And they're showing that now.
So what's unique now is they've released a number of categories on there. So there's things like tiny homes, shipping containers, castles, yurts.
Who's not searching for a castle? I mean,
well,
right.
if you're not searching for a castle, you're just clearly not living your life, right?
But we got to take a deeper look at that, because a lot of people are wondering, it's like, well, what does this actually mean? And while we can't prove it for sure, I mean, the reality is Airbnb is a marketplace. And what that means is they have access to data that you and I probably are not going to see. So, you know, with the way the industry is evolving, with the way things are changing, you know, we're starting to see, you know, particularly in larger metropolitan urban cities, they're starting to be a little bit more cracking down on regulations with STRs, which is making it somewhat more challenging to get into the business in the first place. So I feel like Airbnb is starting to get ahead of this and starting to promote more of these unique style properties where they're not as subject to, you know, these type of regulations. But if you really think about it, it's like, okay, well, if that's what they're promoting, well, we've been talking, but like, if
we've been pounding on the table for years about this.
We have been like very public and talking about this literally for the last at least 6 months to a year, saying you need to focus on how can you bring something that's unique, how can you do something that's experience-based, how can you do something that's different that no one else is doing? Standing
out from that hosting herd, being different. And, you know, this is exactly what Airbnb is promoting and honing towards, but it's not just about Airbnb. And a lot of this is everyone's like, I'm done. I'm over Airbnb. It's like, yes, for sure. We've been on multiple platforms for years, since the start of our business. We're not just on Airbnb. There's so many other travel platforms out there. And a big thing we're doing and what we coach and train on too is even direct bookings, right? Like control your own traffic, you know, control everyone's coming and have loyal repeat customers. This is like a huge focus for us as well, because if these other platforms are going to change and shift, you have no control over that. What do you have control over?
Yeah. When people say I run an Airbnb business, to me, it's like saying
we cringe.
Well, first we cringe, but then the second thing I think it's like saying you run a Yellow Pages business. Like Airbnb is a channel to get customers. It's not a business. I mean, you can make it into a business, but the thing is, what happens if Airbnb turns your traffic off and you stop getting bookings? Well, you don't have a business.
You don't have a business anymore.
Do you?
It's your single point of failure. You have to look at it as a business. Where's your traffic coming from, and make sure that you mitigate your risk and downside.
That is interesting though, because it's like it became a verb. I'm going to Airbnb it, or you know, it's just like I'm going to Google it. You know, Google was the same thing back in the day. That's an interesting take on that, though. It's spot on though.
100%. I mean, the reality is like, so what does this all mean for hosts? Well, because they are looking to promote more of a unique based experience, the reality is that type of inventory to go do traditional techniques like arbitrage and partnerships and all these different things, it's probably not going to exist. So what that means and what we're really looking into right now is, okay, well, if it's not readily available for us to just go and do these type of structures that we coach on, well, I guess that means we're going to have to create these assets from scratch, isn't it?
So we're pretty excited. Our business, it has, you know, immense cash flow coming from it, from our rental arbitrage, from our partnerships, and the way that we've structured our business and even grown through COVID, right? And through the whole pandemic. That's why we've actually been able to thrive. With that cash flow, we're like, well, let's just create our own place and our own experience. If they don't exist, create it. So we're pretty excited with that. We're starting, it's just part of our whole kind of our goals of the wealth generation and how, like, what we're excited about. And that's how we want to craft our business.
Because I mean, bottom line is like, again, if you're doing what everybody else is doing,
do the opposite.
Well, do the opposite, but it's also like, then the only differentiating factor between what you're doing and someone else is price, right? Yeah. And if that's the only way people can get any distinctive difference between what you're doing and what they're offering, then it just becomes a race to the bottom. And that's not a fun game to play. So that's what we've been pounding the table on. That's what we'll continue to pound the table on.
And coach and train and help our students with as well, and really formulate that business plan and really that path of how to succeed in their markets.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in not selling on price. I mean, you're selling on, I prefer to sell on value, unique, offerings, like exactly what you guys are talking about right now, how to differentiate yourself from the pack, how to create your own market, right? I mean, if you create your own market and you're the only player in there, you know, obviously you're going to thrive for a while until other people catch on, which undoubtedly they will, which is why you want to be first to market with things like that. So the innovators often are going to get the biggest, kind of slice of that pie until other people catch on. But I think you guys are spot on with that. And you guys are obviously, teaching your students that throughout the coaching on how to pivot, how to look at market conditions, and ultimately how to take advantage of them based on maybe carving out a niche that other folks haven't thought of. So guys, we're going to go ahead and drop the playlist we've talked about. They mentioned arbitrage and partnership. There's just some technical aspects behind those. We're not going to dive too deeply into those videos or into the explanation of those today, but if you check out the playlist, we'll certainly do a deep dive on those so we can fill in the blanks for you on that. If you already know that you want information or at least a consultation with Michael and Katrina and their team, go ahead and email BNB Bootcamp at VIPfinancialeducation.com. We'll go ahead and drop a link to that below. Be sure to include your first, your last name, the best number to be reached, and one of them will be contacting you ASAP to see if it's a good fit all the way around. Guys, as always, do your own research. We're going to keep bringing Michael and Katrina back here on the channel as long as our folks are continuing to get the results just like they are. So until the next video, take care and make it a great day.